Hello, product people. Welcome to the Product for Product podcast, hosted by Matt Green, data advocate and product manager, and Moshe Mikanovsky, product leader and author. Our goal is to serve the product community by helping you find products that can help make your work in product management easier. Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Product for Product podcast.
Welcome back, everyone. On today's episode, Moshe and I are excited to speak with returning guest and product leader, Eva Gao, about her experience using AI tools securely in the enterprise. So let's dive in. Welcome back to the show, Eva.
Thanks very much for having me again.
Hey, Moshe, how are you doing?
I am good. Hi, Matt. Hi, Eva. Thank you for joining us again. Last time you joined us for episode 102, which was almost a year and a half ago. And we were talking also about AI back then, about how you use AI tools to create a vision video to share internally with your team and stakeholders, et cetera, et cetera. Tell us a bit. We might ask you again about this when we dive in, but our topic is a bit different today. But tell us a bit, just remind our audience, about your background and where are you these days?
Lovely. Yeah, so it's still me. So the background is I'm working in B2B SaaS, B2B enterprise software. So our software, deals with all sorts of problems in circularity, circular economy, sustainability, and this almost controversy was now ESG, environment, social, and governance. So a lot of the context of my stories that you will hear today have a lot to do with the industry itself. That is, enterprise. So very demanding customers, but also in the meantime, there's a lot of stakeholders surrounding everything we do in the product team. And also it's quite a volatile market. I often, think of myself, I work in this sustainability and ESG space, but we also develop a lot of AI solution. So there's this, I almost have this change fatigue that every day there's a lot of changes. There are changes in AI industry, there are changes in the sustainability and ESG industry. So that's a very interesting space we're in. But also, sorry for a long monologue, but also in the meantime is that, in my environment, the IT team, IT security, they have a lot of, decisions in the tools that we use, because we must, hold ourselves accountable to be conformed with all kinds of data protection, data security, and responsiveness of our business. So there are a very limited number of tools that I can use professionally. So that's the gist of the background.
Oh, interesting. So you're not only using AI as a product manager, but your company that you're working for is actually using AI inside the application itself?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
we have,
So you're covering both ends of it, yeah.
That's true, yeah.
I mean, these days, if your product doesn't have some AI, it's like you don't have a product at all.
Right.
Even though I really want to build a new product that the motto is going to be no AI involved or something like that. But and see what will happen.
See what happens, yeah.
No, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, AI goes into every part of our life. And we did speak in the previous episode with Sunny about LLMs in general, but it did come up a little about the security. So I was really happy when I spoke with you to hear that you're dealing with this requirements, and a lot of product managers deal with those requirements, that you are in an enterprise and you build for enterprises. There is a lot of do you have a specific compliances also that you have to adhere to, and your product must be like, is it ISO compliant or other type of compliance, and because of that also it restricts the tools that you have to use?
Absolutely, that's right. So our software, the whole with our customers, the whole process of RFP to sign a contract, there's various certification verifications and IT security. There's a separate file of RFP just for all kinds of IT security questions. So yeah, ISO standards, SOC 2 compliance reports, GDPR, that's all within a lot that we have to follow. I think, but of course, as our company, we're really responsible for the software that we produce. We also have our own internal AI guidelines, development and so on, and always observing the latest going on in the market. I think two things that if I were our IT head of IT, two things will keep me awake at night. One thing is are we using these tools responsibly? Are we just randomly open Claude or DeepSeek and just copy paste our code base and then put it in the open internet? And second thing is, what are the costs? Because another thing is, for example, I use the Copilot Studio of the Microsoft suite, and there's a lot of things I could do, connecting a lot of other tools via the MCP layer, and I could use all kinds of triggers that can trigger the agent responses from sending a message in the Teams chat, or something going on in the Word document, or these can cost a lot of money overnight if I'm not careful with the kind of automation. So I think these two things also are the main reasons that were closely monitored by our IT team.
I think that point about working in the enterprise as well, making sure that people are using the tools that your IT team has approved is critical, because as we know, like you just mentioned, you can open up Claude and start to use it, and then leaking out proprietary data would be a big concern. But it's so easy to form a shadow IT to where people are off doing their own things in different models and different tools. So I think the IT team has a difficult job trying to wrangle that.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. And also, most of my, no, I won't say most of my career in development, which was for the first 20 years, was on Microsoft Stack. And then after that, my career in product management was kind of between Microsoft Stack to Google Stack. So when it was on the Microsoft Stack, it didn't really matter what new tool Microsoft came up with. We just adopted it because we were already on their stack. It was easier to adopt. It was just extension to the license, or it came free with the license, whatever it was. So it makes a lot of sense that Copilot is the chosen one in most enterprises, because I think most enterprises are using Microsoft. They're on the Microsoft stack. And therefore, Copilot becomes almost like the default LLM for enterprises. And then I'm sure a lot of IT departments all over the world had to go through this process of checking how does it exactly it works, how can we sleep at night based on those two questions that you raised. But I'm really glad that you're here, because I'm not working for a specific company these days, so I'm not using any specific product. And when I am working with my clients, some of them are on Microsoft, some of them are not. So there is a whole mix of things. So I don't have that deeper recent experience of dealing with that. So it's really great to hear from you about that. We can also mention throughout the episode, your experience with Copilot specifically, if you want, the good, the bad, the ugly, how you compare it, if you compare it with other LLMs. But what I really want to hear from you is how do you deal with all of that? What's the process that you develop for yourself, and the gotchas and all of that?
Yeah, that's a good one. By the way, it's a good point to point out the distribution power of Microsoft. You can just release anything, and then people will be like, yeah, we already have the license, so why not give it a try? So I guess that was right. That was just how I started, because from your clients, from yourself, from our experiences, people in product, we need to answer a lot of questions that, very unfortunately, sometimes you have to go through a layer of repetitiveness to get to the information that you need to develop the product forward further. And I think what triggered me initially was, for example, I built a roadmap agent internally, so I can answer these. So the agent can help me answer these repetitive questions. But then that was not the goal for me to completely disconnect with my sales or service colleagues, because eventually I want their input, but I don't want to repeat myself when they ask, is this on the roadmap? Is that on the roadmap? When? So the agent is here to take away that sort of pain from me. But then we can have a real conversation when they have a more request. So I think it was mostly driven by that. And of course, initially I used Lovable, without any trademark, without any company information. I just wanted to see what it looks like. And in the end, I realized I can't use Lovable anyway because of all these contexts that I have to put in and all of these hosting and data. So I thought, what options do I have? So I have to make peace with it. So that started my love and hate relationship with Copilot Studio. So that's basically how it started.
Okay. And you mentioned Lovable. So Lovable is mainly for creating front ends or prototypes and designs for that. Copilot Studio does that as well?
Yeah, so eventually my goal is to have a very simple interface, even just a chat box to answer some very simple questions. And it's not going to help anyone creating any image, video, or generating anything in addition. So eventually, I think Lovable for me was an experiment and also quite over-engineered solution, right? It almost felt like I'm using a hammer to crack an egg by going to Lovable. But I'm happy that Lovable helped me get the clarity that I don't really need a big interface to do this very simple job that an LLM or agentic can solve. And another example was what was that? Yeah, also in enterprise we have a lot of big customers who every once in a while you will have one or two very big customers who has particular complaints about your product. And I think that's the everyday life in enterprise. And when they complain, what you want to do is put in the best people that you have, put in all the information that you have, write a letter to the company, have a meeting with the representative of the customer, and just de-escalate the situation. And I found that particularly difficult because whenever that happens, everyone is kind of on their toes, and no one is completely ready to give me the whole picture to have that call with the customer to answer them. So that I went to Lovable again and I said, I want to do a de-escalation assistance and then give me all the information. In the end, what Lovable produced was basically a Microsoft form. So then eventually I just built that in a Microsoft form. So I think all of these are teaching me that we don't usually need the best AI tool, or sometimes we don't need the AI tool at all. It's just a very simple, very classic solutioning.
That's a great point. And I'm using Copilot myself, and then Copilot can make images, so it's built upon the ChatGPT 4 and 5 with its own like proprietary model from Microsoft as well. So, but I use Figma Make. I've dabbled with a Lovable as well, but then I go over and I use Figma Make for doing prototypes and stuff. So, do you have any experience in that as well?
Me too.
Okay.
I always I'm almost the same trajectory. That
Yeah.
is, sometimes I want to sometimes I want to generate an image, and then I would go to Figma. But then Figma also doesn't follow our design standards. The randomization of the LLM, the hallucination, and so on. So then sometimes I just want a couple of creative ideas that I can take, from other places. So I kind of cheated a little bit. I firstly take a screenshot of our own design, of our own platform, and I go to Copilot, and I said, the Copilot LLM, and I said, can you please remove all of the brand identity? Can you just change the wording on the UI and generate a new picture for me? And that's a good job done. And then I toss it into, Claude and other studios to help me generate, better images, the next steps, and so on. And then I toss it back into Figma and say, based on this, can you try to follow our design standard and generate the image? So I almost go through these U-shaped processes to get around, disclosing our internal information.
That's great. Yeah, I think a lot of us do that. Like we have our own like workflows around using different tools to accomplish a task. I think that's a common thread that we all share in the product management space is like one does things really well, but then you need to kind of like work with other ones. And that's where like enterprise security comes into it. You want to make sure that like you have Microsoft, yes, but do you have access to some other things that do things really well? And that's where you might use a Lovable or you might use a Make or you might use a Claude or something like that. So I know Figma Make uses Claude as their model. You know, that's another element where Claude does come up quite a lot in these prototyping tools. You know, I know Base 44 and I think Lovable uses it as well for its base models. So it's just interesting to hear product managers, you know, use different tools to accomplish a task.
That's right. And
Okay.
the thing is, and I still haven't cracked. I really hope that one day I can crack these random, LLM models is like exactly like you said. So if I'm using Claude and I can have a look at the Claude reasoning model side by side, and I understand, okay, you made that decision because of that. But then, let's go back to the Microsoft Copilot Studio. When I'm testing my agent, and there are many constellations and combinations I can use, or you can use LLM orchestration or not. And in the LLM orchestration, you can choose, I'm going to use GPT-4, I'm going to use GPT-5, and then
Hmm.
but then the thing is, now when I debug my own generative my own roadmap agent, and you just have to ask the same question 20 times, and then you try to see what's going on, the very
Yeah.
tedious QA for any AI. And then you look at the reasoning model, it just doesn't look the same as you're using the pure GPT-5 in ChatGPT. And
Hmm.
then just somehow, that's my guessing, haven't understood it. Somehow, when these reasoning models are integrated into ChatGPT, sorry, into Microsoft or into Figma, somehow the reasoning model or the transparency is gone. You can't fully debug or you can't fully see the reasoning model behind it.
So I'm trying to understand that. So what you're saying is that you have that reasoning model in the public
Version.
LLMs, but not in the Copilot and the Figma Make that you're actually paying license for.
Yeah, it sounds quite funny. It could be the granularities of whatever the UI is telling you. So one example is that in my when I'm debugging my roadmap agent, sometimes it's sort of really random, that it's predictably random, that any LLM would do is sometimes you ask, hey, is this feature on the roadmap? And sometimes we'll say, oh, sorry, I don't have access to any internal documentation regarding the roadmap. Do you want to ask a different question? And then you ask the same, and then you start a new window, you ask the same question again. And then now it says, oh, this is on the roadmap with the timeline, with the methodologies and time and outcome. And you
Mhm.
try to hack into the reasoning model, and you want to see what exactly is going on, why two very different results, right? And then
Oh, I
the
see.
number one is saying,
Hmm.
okay, retrieving that's a context successfully went through the knowledge base. The other one is can't find the knowledge base or somehow, and then you just can't. But then the thing is, if you stay within the same LLM, then I think at least when I'm in a separate case using only ChatGPT, I'm able to see the clear reasoning from beginning to the end in a bit more clearer sense.
Mhm. I see. So something with the reasoning model there is hard to find or follow yet.
Mhm.
Which gives you also, this to me is also about the trust. Can I trust the answers that it give me? Especially that it gives you different answers at different windows or different times that you're asking the same question exactly. And then if you cannot follow that reasoning, then definitely I will not trust it. So
Yeah.
you're still patient enough, I guess, to continue try it. I would lose my patience way
I
after.
have I
Well,
have
part,
many
you
times.
know, partially it's because of the Copilot as well. Like to your point, like it's like what we have to use. It's what we have, and so you just work with what you
Yeah.
have.
But you don't
So
have
you're
to
kind of
use
like
it.
stuck.
I don't
What's
have
up?
to use it. I can still use the old way. I can still just not use it at all.
Just yeah,
So
there you go.
I can still
Yeah.
be in my mind in
Right, use your
2020 or
brain.
sometime, right? Rather than in
That's what I
2020.
found out. That's really, I mean, all of these AI, these artificial intelligence, they are really teaching my human intelligence is sometimes the good old query works better than LLM.
Right.
So, in the Copilot Studio, when you configure your agent, you can choose LLM orchestration or not. So this is what I find out, right? And I would really, anyone, if you're listening to this podcast, if you have more experience, struggling with Copilot Studio, this is what I find out so far is you either use LLM orchestration, but you hack into the instructions. So you don't use any, so you hack into the instructions and you will find out in the reasoning models that LLM will bypass the knowledge base and it will follow only your instructions. So what you do is you write your entire roadmap in the instruction and it will bypass any further hallucination from fetching data out of SharePoint and so on, the Microsoft suite. Or you stop using LLM orchestration, just a good old-fashioned matching the keywords, the good old-fashioned query, but then only use the LLM to draft the answer. So I'm going to find out, is this feature on the roadmap? Just using that feature as a keyword, matching the query, and then draft the answer. This is the timeline. This is right. And then just basically using this entire agent as a little chatbot. So I think both of these would work. The one without LLM orchestration is very accurate. It's just fetching the data, write an answer to you. And then here you can actually use your knowledge base. And the other side is you just hack into the instruction and you still use the LLM orchestration. And the Copilot Studio, it's almost like you do all kinds of combinations. It's almost like you're making a new friend and you're trying to say something to the friend and see what she responds is. And I'm just like trying to do all this. And then I was quite surprised that the agent would go as far as skipping the knowledge base just to follow my instruction. And I thought, this is a personality of Microsoft, is it? So that's what I found out so far. It's frustrating, but it's also quite interesting, the process.
Yeah. So it definitely requires a lot of patience with it and see, what will work and what not. I want to understand a bit about that security. We talked, a lot already about choosing Copilot by default and stuff like that, because of the infrastructure and everything else is on Microsoft. So you have SharePoint, you have other things. I don't know if you're using Jira, which is not Microsoft, or you're using probably DevOps.
DevOps, yeah.
Okay. So still Microsoft. So everything is on Microsoft. But the hosting of it, is it cloud hosted on Azure, or do you have like your own instant of everything? Because I'm trying to see also where the data actually is. So when you submit everything to either a SharePoint or to Copilot, where exactly is it processed and what do they save and how do Microsoft make sure that it is secure for your organization and there is no way that anyone else can get their hands on it?
Well, I think the best answer I can provide is I trust our IT department wholeheartedly.
Okay. Yeah.
But also, we definitely host our own instances, and it's also geolocation based. So everything that I'm doing now is from my company perspective, all of the European data comes into Frankfurt or coming out of Frankfurt. So it's very secure. The German based on all this German cybersecurity law, but I mean. You do hear here and there, Microsoft, especially Microsoft in France, there's recently a backlash of Microsoft actually didn't follow the cybersecurity law. What we want to do is on one hand we piggyback on this huge global, firm who is very responsible for data protection and is compliant to GDPR and all kinds of cybersecurity. In the meantime, our internal IT practices and also the all kinds of development processes that we put in.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a good point because you have to consider Microsoft in their relationship with OpenAI and using those models, and then Figma using Claude, and because they're all using these backend API model access. I'm using Microsoft for my knowledge base. They have access to proprietary information, But OpenAI, you have to make sure like OpenAI doesn't have access to that and they aren't training their models on that.
Yeah.
So, your IT team not only has to understand Azure and Microsoft, but it needs to make sure OpenAI doesn't have a gateway to your data.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely not an easy job.
No, it's
I
not.
think there was once I was trying out. By the way, you may think Microsoft Copilot Studio is still, many people still criticize Microsoft Copilot. You may think Copilot Studio is still in the, launch phase or soft launch or beta phase, but it's, can I just say it's already very bloated with all kinds of features and configurations. The
Hmm.
other day I was trying to test out, the MCP layer, you can pull things from here and there. And I think at some point, Microsoft prompt a window and said, we can no longer, like, you need to log in. We can't find your email address. So I tried to log in and my company email address, just doesn't exist anymore. And I think that was IT security sort of gatekeeping and say, when this happens, log that person out or somehow. And I thought, okay, better not proceed.
Not going to go any further. That's right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting, yeah. So I'm sure they're trying to give a lot of control also to the IT, so the IT can decide, where the data is and how to treat it and stuff like that. And I would guess that they have a very different instance of OpenAI, so they're not just
Right. Yeah.
directly using the same instance that everyone else is using. So,
Mm,
for their purpose.
that would be sensible. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say. I would totally
Yeah.
agree. Yeah.
At least that, but for the right size of enterprise and for the right amount of money, they can create any number of instances that they want,
Hmm.
and have you your own instant that is like a private cloud type of
Mm,
solution. But
mm.
yes, this is something we usually trust our IT to deal with and to make sure it's all secure and all that, and we just go with our merry life. Um, so how many times a day do you find yourself having to do this cleanup of information from one end, putting it somewhere else, and then bringing it back and all of that stuff?
Oh, probably more than I should. Um, yeah, probably more than I should. I'm a bit of a, I guess, it's a good indicator. I'm on your podcast twice talking about tools. I'm very much of a tool person that I like to, dig around and try to find out whatever I can.
That's what
So
this
it's a
podcast
good
is all
thing.
about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing that IT is there to try to stop me from doing things,
Oh, I see.
a bit over the line here.
But that's
Um,
interesting. The interesting question is also using your internal network with the public models like Claude or whatever. How do they really stop you from sharing sensitive information? Or is it just you have to know that you have to do that,
It's
but
like a trust.
other users might not do that, and therefore there is a risk there?
there is certainly the layer of missing out if you don't try all the possibilities. But then also in the meantime, everyone in the company they're quite in the let's say in the right mind space that this is not our data to risk. This is customer data, or this is not our software to risk. This is the company software. So it's like Matt just said, it's very much based on trust basis. We have internal, compliance. Please do not breach it. And we have IT training, online training that you have to go through the PowerPoint to answer questions. So but I think that's almost like law, right? The law is here. Don't break it. If you break it, they're
Hmm.
gonna put you in jail. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it kind of depends on your own
I mean,
self-control.
and again, this problem didn't start with AI because it could be for any document that you might write. You can
Mm.
download the document and export it and send it to someone.
Yeah.
So, or screenshots or whatever.
Mm.
Hmm.
So this issue is not a new issue.
Mm.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
quite passionate about this security question as well, especially when we develop our own solution and there's a lot of data flowing in and out of our platform. Let's try to treat it with the best intention. and also there's plenty of guidelines over here about what's the definition of personal data, and what is exactly for which type of data, how do you handle it, and what is the nature of it. The EU AI Act, it's quite decent, an AI Act that it kind of firstly and say, read this when you're this type of business, and you pose this level of risk to the society if you breach, for example, you handle financial data, medical data, and something like that. And obviously we don't. And then so you can already sort of classify yourself, and then okay, if you're this level of software, this is what you have to do. And then GDPR and also these ISO standards, they're quite comprehensive. So even when we develop the solutions for our own customers, that's something that everyone's keeping in mind in a very structured way.
Yeah. That's probably an added benefit of having AI in your application itself, is you understand laws and regulations, and especially European data laws and stuff like that. So when you do vet Microsoft and these other tools that you use internally, you have a bit of expertise when it comes from your IT department. They know what they're looking for. So
that's right. Yeah, I do read the small prints. Sometimes I need to read the small prints so I can read the same for our software. But sometimes I do read and see how to do it. Yeah.
Devil's in the details, right?
Yeah.
I started using AI to summarize the small print for me. So
yeah.
Because I don't have patience to read it anymore.
You just got to be mindful. I mean, I just noticed recently that LinkedIn, in their privacy settings, they actually have by default, they're using their data to train their models. It's on by default. You have to actually opt. You have to actually opt out.
If you don't turn it off, it's on.
You don't turn it off. Yeah. So they're actually using their data to train.
They send
like a new thing.
They sent an email out recently to tell people about that. I immediately went and turned it off.
Yeah.
But this discussion actually make me think that maybe we need to have in the future some cybersecurity and security experts coming in to tell us what tools are available out there to just help product managers secure their information.
Well, I think it's an important thing, because I do hear personally OpenAI has a lot of ethical hiccups to me. There are certain things about their company culture that I find a little cringy. But Anthropic was built, with a philosophical approach of being more secure and ethical, I think. So that's their marketing spin. I don't know if they truly are or not. So it would be interesting to have a bit of a cybersecurity person in here to kind of give us the lay of the land.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I guess the corporate culture does seep through what you stand for. It does seep through the company. Yeah, this is a very important topic. I think it's, I like to I also discuss this a lot with my friends and in and out of the industry. I said, I live in Hamburg in Germany. It's it's a very secure city. Life quality is pretty high, lovely space, but your bikes, they get stolen quite easily, and they get stolen from your own basement. So then we usually say when you buy a new bike, usually we buy secondhand, less likely to get stolen. It's like 30 euro, 40 euro. And then usually we say, invest in the same amount of money in the lock. And when you buy it, because at the end of the day, it's going to get. So, I mean, this is almost the same thing with AI, is we invest a lot in AI development and using AI tools. But perhaps if we want to invest in equal amount of money, funds into AI security, that would be putting a lot of people at ease with all this AI apocalypse. You see it every day on social media. We're all going to lose our jobs and so on.
Right.
Yeah, I shouldn't worry about that. Yeah.
Let's see what maybe in a year or two we'll come to discuss that, and maybe there will be something there. Already talking about Copilot, can you share with us like a specific scenario that you're using it, even outside of the security issue, but how does it help your work as a product professional?
Well, I think I will still use the same example of this roadmap, because I think eventually what is going to liberate is really the repetitive questions that we face, but it's not going to take away the valuable discussions that we have with our stakeholders. And when I first, so I had, I did it as a proper product manager, like I did a beta version, I had stage release, first small testing myself, ask the same question 20 times and then try to find out. And I asked my own team to test it out. And then I realized, and that was almost a very funny moment, reminds me of all of these QA memes that you see, how you develop your product for, how people actually use it. And then the first round of testing, I realized people just sort of, my own team, they use this agent to only ask about that particular functionality that they were developing at the time, right? They almost use it as a, checking, oh, is the thing that I'm developing on the roadmap, is it mentioned correctly? And then we're like, okay, fair enough. And then I released this to a small number of stakeholders and say, and then there was one person, what he did was, oh, I asked the agent to export the whole list of features, and he did. And so that was not the intention, right? Because I had a problem space written down as, just removing the repetitive questions of, is this on the roadmap? Is it when? Is this on the roadmap when? Mm-hmm. And what does it mean? But then now you give them this agent, they're like, oh, this agent is here to help me understand the roadmap. So export everything now, let me see, right? But in reality, that might not be what they use this for. So I guess by doing this little exercise, it kind of reminds me of the feature life cycle of product development, and also help me understand, my stakeholders as human behaviors. Mm-hmm. That's and then using this mostly, for example, I had a 2 weeks very extensive period where I had to do. It was almost like a 2 weeks quick experiment to respond to some quick market development, in sustainability. For example, the new EU political pushback, the new US administration pushing back on sustainability, DEI. So we have a lot of very, let's say, urgent market development. You want to react quick. So I had this quite intense 2 weeks where I need to meet people every day in the morning, almost like a daily stand-up, where we discuss what we learned from yesterday. So then every day I was responsible, or I wanted to write the documentation. So I just outsourced this task to Copilot, and I built a little agent called documentation writer. And so that was another moment when you sort of ask this generic agent who is trained on general knowledge of the internet of human intelligence. And then I said, I'm having this meeting. I want a documentation on a daily basis for 2 weeks. And when I say this, you ask me this information, make it a dialogue, and write documentation. And eventually it wrote this documentation based on a template that you usually see from yourself, from your colleagues, that documentation title from the to the next meeting. So it's almost like a double check of, the generic public writes documentation like that. I usually like to not only replace some of my manual work, but also using this AI to double check how, almost like not a best practice, but like average, middle average practice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, great. No, these are great examples, and we always love to learn, how product people are using AI for that. So all of that, it's all coming from the internal Microsoft tools, so you don't need to reduce or redact any of the information. But then if you want to use externals, that's where, how you told it before, that you have to ask it to remove all the sensitive data. Does it know what the sensitive data is, or you have to train it about the sensitive data?
Yeah, you have to give very specific instructions. Like, it should be very different. The UI text should be entirely different. The color should be entirely different. The layout should be simplified, and the logo, any brand identity needs to be removed. I mean, so I think this is a very small pain of me, right? Because at the end of the day, we have professional UX designers who are much more experienced in human interactions and UX design. That was mostly because I had an idea. I want to see it in action, so then I can pass it on to the next level of people to refine it. So not starting from zero. But the biggest pain that I really want to have, which is what I'm trying to, at least I will try to build with Copilot and DevOps, so Microsoft Suite, is we have this huge pool of maintenance requests. So let's define maintenance as anything that is not a bug, and let's also not like, let's say, big product initiatives. It's smaller, quick, incremental customer requests that you can just chuck in another sprint, quickly release and chuck it here, chuck it here. And these ideally, right? Ideally, customers say these to service and consulting people in the company, our stakeholders. Our stakeholders write this in a well-drafted ticket, well prioritized, throw it over to us, we develop. But that's 0% of the chance that you ever have it. The ticket is never well written. You never understand it without asking any questions, and there's never enough prioritization. So I just had this question. I actually asked. We use this roadmap provider that's one of the major roadmap tool providers, and then I said, why do you have this feature in mind that you first of all complete the customer requirements? I give you the context of our software, of our business. Whenever we receive like a half-baked request, right, you complete it. And then second is, can you suggest the priority? So when we wake up and we look at the list, at least we put in the best of our time to the top one, top two, based on your suggestion. They were like, So basically in the end, the answer was no. But I thought if I use the Microsoft Copilot Studio and I just basically use two agents to orchestrate, and then I connect that to DevOps, all within the safe environment of the company, and I can basically just build this out myself. So that's probably the next step. I can already see how much I will struggle with this entire process, just trying to decode Copilot. But that's the main pain that can reduce a lot of frictions in the organization.
We interviewed here in the past a startup called Bagel that they are doing something in this. I mean, their product is between salespeople and customer support to product people to bridge that disconnect between them when incoming issues are coming in. I don't know if they do this one specifically, but you can check them out.
It's Bagel.
Bagel. Bagel AI, I think it's called. We had an episode with their CEO and founder, Ohad Biran, I think his last name. And we can connect you to him also if you ever want to speak with him. He's a great guy. But who knows? Maybe they do something like that.
Yeah, that would be incredible. That would be incredible. But then, the sort of tool-oriented mindset in me, I'm like, I've got Copilot, I've got ADO. Let's try to put them together.
That's exactly it. As you're going through that, Eva, I just think about how personal relationships are like with AI. Like product managers have this like personal like relationship of like, I use this and this and this, and it does. I wanted to do that and that and that. It's just all of us have a unique way of working with AI. I think that's a common thing. Again, going through all the conversations Moshe and I have had, and even personal conversations I've had, just like we're all using different tools to accomplish different things, and it just goes to show when people are like AI is going to replace people and it's going to replace product managers and replace. I just don't see it. I see it as a partner. I keep going back to that. Like product managers are there to, work on strategy, work with the business, do complex relationships. Emotional intelligence is such a big thing with PMs. The partnership with AI, it's just going to be like, I'm going to use a bunch of different tools that I have access to make myself better. So I guess one last question I have is just, where do you see, if we were to have you back in a year from now, where do you see AI going in specifically around product management?
We'd love to always come back. I think where this is going, we probably don't need to wait for another year for real
yes,
bigger
5
development.
minutes from now.
Yeah, 5 minutes. Yeah, didn't DeepSeek said their biggest release has not been landed yet. They said by the end of this year you will see what we can do actually. And I thought, I mean, well said. can I just tell you one example in the sustainability space is, so I mean the word sustainability, it always had different connotations. However, where you're from, you can think about it CSR, like corporate, social responsibility is like how I learned it at university, and that was almost 10 years ago. And then you have risk management, and then you have ROI, right? Financially, how do you achieve financial success by reducing your climate impact, for example, changing everything to EV, or produce less materials and so on. This space is changing so much, and then you have a lot of software solutions that's AI native in this space, and everyone is just and the marketing message is as progressive as click this button and you have your sustainability report, click this button and you have your materiality done. It's never as that simple. Like you said, the threshold and the business context, and how much we struggle with this. Still a little bit of prompt engineering would still go very far a long way. But then if the prompt is too long, it's off track again. If you put in even just one more agent or one more LLM, is off track again. The randomness of this AI tool, based on what we know today, is still very much at the beginner level. So if we go like this, I don't think AI is actually going to just shoot off and replace us. But I do hope, because I have no desire of keeping, let's say, at least 30% to 40% of my current job. I would love AI to take it away. The repetitive tasks that agentic
documents,
can replace, please take it away. Yes.
Yes.
So I would hope that the AI could be, 1 year from now or very soon from now, it's a real co-pilot. Is here to really give me the sort of insight that is qualified enough to help me make a decision. It's qualified enough to help me not generate a whole report, but dynamically accompany me. So by introducing, now I'm gonna do this task, step 1 to 3. But if I replace step 2 with step B, then I introduce new complications into the whole chain of work. Right? I need you to simulate if I do it. We like to talk about this in supply chain. Sustainability management is usually you look at your supply chain, look at all the materials that you use. The emission is a big combination of every little bit of plastic, every little bit of transportation, every bit of suppliers. And then people say, yeah, if I just simply change my vehicles to EV and I change this material to a recyclable material, but then it's not a static process, because when you introduce a new material, you're introducing a new supplier with a new fleet. It's a very dynamic way of looking at things. So the sort of understanding we have about AI is quite linear, and is not ready to help me really make a decision based on this quite ideological way of approaching things. And human are much more flexible. I can think, if today I ask you to do this job, you're going to do it like this because I know you. But today I can't just simply give this job to another person and expect it the same thing. But that's somehow how AI thinks. Is if you use the same context, it's right.
Over and over.
I really hope that AI can replace a lot of manual work, but in a more kind of decision-driven sense, but not in like, I'm just going to replace your job, and then whatever the quality is, you're going to have to take it.
It has to be almost a level down, like more deeply personal, but then also have the context. I think at the end of the day, context is like everything for these models. Like it has to understand things, and it has to be flexible to continuously adapt like a human would. But then there's a level of personal experience of like, me, and you know how I operate, and you know what I need. And that's where that next level agent is. So, but then the question comes up, are people comfortable with AI being that personal with them? Are they comfortable with a machine or a system knowing them that well? It becomes more of a philosophical, psychological thing at that
That's
point.
right. And also just to describe, because it's absolutely correct that that a lot of times how accurate or how less random AI or generative AI depends on your context, your knowledge base, all of these attachments that you put in the memories and so on. But then just to even for us to properly pull down this context in natural language, even we need to have the ability to draft that, and
Right.
that's already a skill that human firstly need. And Moshe, like the example that you mentioned, if I'm using generative AI to write the small prints, and you use generative AI to read the small prints, and we're absolutely removing the human layer of this, right? But then at the end of the day, somebody has to, from the beginning, to draft that down.
Yeah, absolutely. No, lots of great questions over there, and I'm sure that some of them might reveal themselves over time. Some of them might still be a mystery for us. I think at the end of the day, it will be also about our personality, and that's how we approach it. How much we trust it, how much patience we have for it, etc., etc. So definitely a lot to see what will happen. But I also agree. It's part of the hype and part of people talking about it creates this doomsday, like it will replace us. But we know that it's not exactly what's going to happen. Something else will happen, but maybe it will be worse than that. But hopefully it will be better. Okay, that was great. What an amazing discussion. Where can people reach out to you, Eva?
Oh, people can just find me on LinkedIn, and pretty sure that they hear about this podcast from your LinkedIn, so they can find me there.
Thank you so much, Ava. This has been a great conversation. Really enjoy having you back on the show and look forward to having you on the show again in the future. Next time, I'm sure a lot of AI advancements have happened. So look forward to talking with you and learning more about the work you're doing.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thanks very
Excellent.
much for having me back again. And thanks very much for listening.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you to all the listeners. Thank you, Moshe, as always. And we'll talk to everybody next time. Take care.
Thank you very much, everyone. Take care, Eva.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you to all the listeners. We really appreciate the feedback and support. Please leave us a review to help others find the show on Apple or Spotify or anywhere else you're listening to the show.